right with, we'll start right with the SSI, supplemental security income, and I've got to hit got it. There we are. Okay, so here's the definition of SSI right from the Social Security website. Social Security, SSI, provides monthly payments to people with disabilities and older adults who have little or no income or resources. It is intended to be an income replacement. That is what this program is. And this is the first slide with a hyperlink. You will see a lot of hyperlinks in this, and you will be given a PDF of this with all of the active hyperlinks when we are done with this tonight. All right, so have no fear when you see the hyperlinks. You will get this PDF when we are done, but I've included a lot of helpful links. So that is the link to the main page of the Social Security Administration's website for SSI specifically. All right, why is my screen not moving? Here we go. Let's try this again. Okay, here we go. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more in depth about what the definition of it is. Income. Again, I was emphasizing this is income. This is money that comes directly to people with disabilities or their rep payee or representative payee. There's the lingo again, rep payee, representative payee. The purpose is to meet basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter. That is the intention of this program. It is designed to help aged, blind, and disabled people who have little or no income. And just a little trivia for you, this is paid for and funded by U.S. taxpayers' general funds, just general funds from U.S. taxpayers. Eligibility for this program, there are 2 hoops you have to jump through: financial and medical eligibility. And with SSI, there are 2 programs. One is for children's, one is for children. This is up to age 18. And then there's SSI for adults. Another hyperlink down there, understanding SSI for SSI eligibility. And again, you'll be able to click those when you get the PDF afterwards. So let's talk about the financial eligibility first for SSI, because maybe like me, when we started this journey, a whole bunch of professionals said, apply for SSI when our son was 4 years old. Made the appointment, and 30 seconds into the call, they're like, nope, you don't qualify because financially. So let's talk about that a little bit. The financial is based on the household income, the entire household income until the month after the 18th birthday of your child. So when I say household income, that means aunts, uncles, siblings. It's household income until the month after the person's 18th birthday. After age 18, only the individual's income is considered. Therefore, parental income is waived, or household income is waived. So there's a lot, you can see the hyperlinks down here for understanding SSI resources, but in a nutshell, this is where most determinations are made right away. An individual or a household, depending on the age of the person, is allowed to have $2,000 in financial resources, or $3,000 for a couple. And when I say financial resources, I mean checking account, savings account, retirement account, the school savings accounts, anything, 529s, that's the number I was looking for, 529s, $2,000 in financial resources across the board. You are allowed to have a roof over your head, so you're allowed to have a home. You're allowed to have 1 car. Anything beyond that counts toward the $2,000 in financial resources. So I have more information for you at these websites. Okay, so that sort of touches on the financial eligibility. Now we're going to talk the medical eligibility. There's an everyday definition of disabled, and then there's Social Security's definition of disabled. So you must meet Social Security's definition of disabled. If your child is under the age of 18, the disability definition looks like just about any other disability definition. It's based on marked and severe functional limitations. And We're also looking at how is the child under the age of 18, how is their development comparing with other children their age? So there's sort of a benchmark there. How much are they differing from a typically developing child at this age? What is the child able to do? What are they not able to do? How much extra help is needed? So it looks a little bit more like a typical definition of disabled. However, after the age of 18, the definition changes. The question is not, is the person disabled or do they have a diagnosis? The question is, does their disability keep them from earning a salary to support themselves? And how do they define that salary to support themselves? We have an acronym: substantial gainful activity, or SGA. You might hear that term tossed around. SGA in 2024 is $1,550 a month, or if you're blind, $2,590 a month. If the Social Security Administration determines, or if you're able to make $1,550 a month, or SGA, then they will consider that you are not disabled, according to this definition. So that's a very different definition. It isn't, do you have a diagnosis? Are you disabled? Is, can you work? Can you earn SGA or not? So that's a big difference with that. So you have to meet that definition. Your condition has to last 12 months, has lasted 12 months or is expected to last longer than 12 months, or can be expected to result in death. I mentioned earlier about a representative payee, or the lingo is rep payee. I've got some links for you here. The rep payee is used when a beneficiary, or your child that is eligible for SSI, if your child does not have the capacity to manage their own money, then we use a rep payee. The Social Security Administration does first look to family members or friends to serve as a rep payee. In general, you're going to open a separate, distinct representative payee account at the financial institution of your choice. And there may be some questions about this. You can't open that account until SSI has been approved. There's a letter that arrives, all that, but it can't be done until your child has actually been approved. So it's a separate account. I've got a quote that I pulled right off of there. What can you use it for? Must use the benefits received on behalf of the beneficiary to meet the beneficiary's current and future needs, and then any funds that the payee does not need for the beneficiary's needs must be saved. And I've put a link to information about ABLE accounts there. Today's subject is not really about ABLE accounts, but I wanted to put that in there because there sometimes are questions about, what if we don't need all the money that month? What can we do with it? Then that's where ABLE accounts can come in. So there's also, I just found this today, a guide for representative payees. There's a hyperlink for that as well. Okay. Again, we're talking about how to spend it. How can you spend SSI? Again, the intention is life's necessities of food, clothing, and shelter. That's what it should be spent on. Once those needs are met, though, the balance can be spent on things that will directly help the beneficiary and keep good records. Right now, we haven't, I believe that the most recent policy is that if you're living with the SSI recipient, you're no longer required to do an annual report. But I'd recommend you keep those good records regardless, just in case. Just keep those records for how the money was spent. Okay. Other hyperlinks that I wanted to say. Children under the age of 18, SSI. There's again, some different guidelines for eligibility. And if your child is under the age of 18, then once they are getting ready to turn 18, the case will be reviewed 2 months before they turn 18 to determine if that medical eligibility will be met so that they can continue receiving SSI payments. So again, there will be a sort of redetermination when they approach that age of 18. There are redeterminations. Once you are approved for it, you have to prove that you are still eligible for it. At least once every 3 years, there will be a redetermination. These are called continuing disability reviews. And there's some links for you there. Okay. Now that you've learned all this great stuff, how do you apply? First of all, so that you avoid the pitfall that I fell into when we first applied for this, check those eligibility requirements online. There's a very much more detailed information, understanding SSI, eligibility, hyperlink right there. Now, there's a couple different ways that you can apply now. There is the old-fashioned way of going into the office and doing it, but there are ways to start this online now. And in fact, so I've given you some links there for how to apply, but there also is another one, that second link that says new link for assistance when applying. That literally is a website where you enter just a basic amount of information, submit it, and then the Social Security Administration will contact you to get the information that they need. So it's a much more user-friendly way to sort of get started if you just can't get all the paperwork together right away, but you want to start the process. So there's that. And again, I had mentioned before, the month after their 18th birthday is when adults would be, when many adults are eligible. So my son's birthday is on July 23rd. We could apply August 1st. So bear that in mind when you're applying. I recommend that you start collecting the documents that you need by looking at all of these links online to see what's needed, what documentation is needed. Start collecting those, but you can't actually apply until the month following your child's 18th birthday. You can also call the 1-800 number to get started, and that is 800-772-1213. If necessary or really desired, you can schedule an appointment to be seen in person. The offices did reopen in April of 2022. We're coming up on 2 years now that those offices have been reopened. They still are recommending online and phone contact if possible. And just a side note that up until last week, the longest I had ever waited online or on hold for the national number, I'd never waited more than like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Last week, I waited for 2 hours and 43 minutes, but I had my earbuds in and I was doing some other work, and so I just kept on, just whatever. And I heard the music probably about 1,000 times, but I eventually got through to someone. And I spoke with this very helpful woman for about 3 minutes. She answered my question. It was a really pleasant thing. And I was glad that I had my earbuds in and I could just be walking around doing something else. So anyway, so I'm just telling you, it may be 15 minutes, it may be 20 minutes, it may be a long wait. You can also call your local office. Sometimes they can answer numbers. And if you're interested, I can tell you how to find. You can just Google Social Security office locator, and then you can locate it by zip code. But that is there. Okay. Because I can't help myself, I keep putting helpful links in here, and you will get this PDF at the end when you can do this. But there are those things about supplemental security income. Okay, there's a big red title here. So that delineates that we're going to stop talking about SSI and we'll talk about SSDI in a moment. But I'm going to give us all just a moment to sort of let that sink in. I'm going to take a drink of water here, and then we'll get started on SSDI. Okay. SSDI, insurance. There's the difference. See, I already answered that question of the goals in the beginning when I said how they differ. One's income, one's insurance. There's your answer. So SSDI pays benefits to certain family members if the parent is insured. And let me back up just for a minute. And I'm going to be talking about SSDI for the purposes of a child of yours getting SSDI. I'm not going to be talking about the entire program. I'm just talking about how this program will interface with a child of yours, if they are disabled or not. But I just wanted to make sure that we knew about that. That's why I'm saying if the parent is insured. You become insured by working long enough and you've paid Social Security taxes on those earnings. You know, that FICA line on your pay stubs, that's what we're talking about here. A childhood disability benefit, which is also called or previously referred to as the Disabled Adult Child, or DAC. You might have heard that. A childhood disability benefit is receiving SSDI payments based on their parents' Social Security earnings when a parent either retires or starts receiving disability benefits themselves, in other words, if they become disabled, or if they die. There's a hyperlink in there for how you qualify for disability benefits. Okay, so again, this is a child of yours getting SSDI payments off of a parent's record. It's different from the SSI that we were talking about before. Now, the medical requirements for this over the age of 18 are the same medical requirements as SSI, so that's one way that they are similar. And another differentiation is that while I said SSI is paid for with tax revenue from general funds, SSDI is paid for with Social Security taxes, or that FICA line that is on your paycheck. That's how this program is funded. So there's another difference there. Okay, so SSDI beneficiaries can be children. And if you're a child under the age of 18, there's no disability requirement for SSDI. A child under 18 can receive SSDI payments regardless of having a disability or not. Because again, the requirement is that a parent retires or has become disabled themselves or has passed away. Now, a child that is receiving SSDI benefits as a minor under the age of 18 may be eligible to continue receiving those benefits on a parent's record after the age of 18 if they have a qualifying disability. Then they are considered a DAC, a disabled adult child who is receiving a childhood disability benefit. So how is that defined? It is an adult with a qualified disability that began before the age of 22, must meet the definition of disabled or disability for adults. Same one as SSI. I keep pointing over here because I'm pointing backwards in my PowerPoint. Must be unmarried. And there's that number again, $1,550 a month or $2,590 if blind. The earnings have to be under that substantial gainful activity of SGA. There it is again. All right. So beneficiaries, there's also another way that individuals with disabilities can receive SSDI. And that is by working and earning credits on their own work record. Those credits used to be referred to as quarters. So if you've heard that term before, that's what we're talking about. You can earn up to 4 credits a year. A person with disabilities can earn up to 4 credits in 1 year, and a credit is defined this year as $1,730. So every time that somebody earns, a person with disability works and earns $1,730, they earn a credit. You can earn up to 4 credits per year. And there's, you see the hyperlink to how to earn credits for more information. If your child, your adult child or your child can earn 6 credits or quarters before the age of 24, they get SSDI on their own work record. And why is that important? Because once you get SSDI for 24 months, they qualify for Medicare, in addition to Medicaid if they're on it. And Medicare, why is that important? Medicare, more doctors accept Medicare than Medicaid. Wider variety of doctors, more doctors. So this is really great. So there's more information about that on that hyperlink, but I wanted to tease you with that information. If your child with disabilities can earn 6 quarters, this year a quarter is defined as $1,730. They can earn 6 of those before the age of 24. They get SSDI, and then 24 months later, they get Medicare. Moving on. Okay, so how do we apply for this? At this point, DAC applications can't be done online. So you get to call that number and see how long you get to wait online. There's the TTY number. And what I would recommend for sure is you do this adult disability report. And there's a hyperlink to that. It's that SSA 3368 link that I've got there. If you complete that online disability report, you're going to have most of the information that you need for that. And I also added just an overall link to learn more and apply for SSDI or start the process of applying for SSDI there. More helpful links. Again, because I can't help myself. Every time I see a help, I just need to add more hyperlinks, and you can click on whatever ones you're interested in. All right. We've got disability starter kits. Again, that's going to be really helpful. If you can find the time and the energy and find all of these documents that you need, it's going to be really helpful to speed up this process of applying for that. Okay, so we're getting close to the end of my official presentation. Again, I do just want to tell you a little bit about the ARC. If you don't know about us, the ARC is a part of a national community-based organization. We advocate for people and serve people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families throughout their entire lifespan. And a side note, the program of the ARC of Illinois that I work for is called the Lifespan Program, and we take questions from birth to end of life questions. If you've got a question related to anything related to intellectual and developmental disabilities, give us a call. That's why we're here. There are 650 chapters of the ARC nationwide. We're part of the ARC of Illinois. There are statewide chapters in just about every state. There are sometimes even local chapters, but we are advocating on the front lines to ensure that people with IDD and their families have the support and services they need to be fully engaged in their communities. And that is where CIF and the ARC of Illinois are right in link. They're fully engaged in their communities to the best of their extent. Our vision is happy lives with full participation in the community, and our mission is empowering people with disabilities to achieve full participation in community life through informed choices. And we do this in a number of ways. One of the ways is doing evening webinars to talk with parents and self-advocates about how to access different services and supports that are there. And that is the end of my presentation here. So I'm going to stop sharing. We have a lot of time for questions. Again, this was really intended to be an introduction to these programs. I'm sure that there are going to be questions. There always are. I'm happy to take them. And if it's a really specific question, I may not be able to answer really specific questions, and I may be doing a lot of referring you to the websites, but I'm happy to take questions now.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Absolutely.
We have a number of questions, and just to repeat for those who are listening but aren't viewing the chat, Suzanne has graciously allowed us to share her presentation. So we will be emailing that out to the email that you used to register for the webinar. And now we can answer or get to some of those questions, and hopefully, Suzanne, you'll have answers.
Absolutely.
first, there were a few in the area of SSI.
Mhm.
So the first question was, in the case of divorced parents, are the incomes of both households considered?
That is a really good question. I don't have a definitive answer for you. My response is it's household income. But I can't, so I'm going to refer to the Social Security website. And I may screen share again if we get to that point. But again, as I understand it, it is household income that is being considered. But I don't know specifically about a case of parents who are divorced. So I would refer that to the local office. And in fact, well, yeah, I don't want to risk. Let me see if I can pull up here. I'm going to look up the office locator. Security. Nothing like doing this right here. I'm assuming that many of you are going to be using the Evanston office. What's our zip code for Evanston? 60201?
Yes.
Okay. So, oh wow, they're not even giving a local office number there. They're just giving the 1-800 number. But what I can do later is I do have access to those local office numbers if we need it. So I can send that out. But I would call the local office to ask that question. I don't want to give you incorrect information. Mm-hmm.
There's another question in the SSI area about what if there is not a family member to act as a rep payee?
Then they would look at if there are friends, if there are trusted friends to do it, but then there are, the Social Security Administration is able, and I think it's in those rep payee links that they can be provided, like a professional representative payee. There is an option for that, and that information is in those links on the representative payee slide. There. Mm-hmm.
There's another question still in the SSI area about if someone has a college 529 plan,
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to count towards eligibility? And I'm not sure, but I'm guessing that's the $2,000, limit.
I imagine so. It's going to depend on whose name that account is in. If it's in the child's name, then it just might. Now, that's where ABLE accounts. It's asking me to confirm my speaking language. That's fascinating. Maybe I was, okay. I'm speaking English. There we go. Okay. ABLE accounts may be an alternative here. And I want to say there might be a way to convert a 529 to an ABLE account because they are both 529 accounts. ABLE accounts are a category of 529 accounts. So there might be a way to convert that. But I would refer then to ABLE, Illinois ABLE, for that question if you're looking into that. But I'm imagining that a 529 in the child's name would count toward that, as a savings account would in their name. So, yeah, and Illinois ABLE, let me see if I can, again, Illinois ABLE. Okay, I'm going to put that link in the chat to see. I want to say, I'm not going to promise anything, but I want to say I did hear at some point that ABLE accounts can be converted. I mean, I'm sorry, that 529 savings accounts can be converted to ABLE accounts. It might not be an easy process, but I think you could do that. And then ABLE accounts allow you, if you haven't been introduced to ABLE accounts, ABLE accounts are a savings account that allows people with disabilities to maintain their benefits eligibility for things like SSI and Medicaid and their Medicaid waivers, and be able to have a savings account and have over $2,000 to their names. Okay.
So we have a great recommendation. Thank you, Joyce, for just letting people know that you want to check the bank where you open your account for your SSI account, because she has learned that not all banks understand this highly specialized kind of account. So thank you for that. Here is what I'm hoping is an easy one for you, just a clarification about when do you apply for SSI. So if a son turns 18 on June 25th, the question is, can we apply on July 1st?
Yes.
Perfect.
The month after an individual turns 18. Now, you can apply earlier than that. You're just going to be, there's just a high possibility that you're going to be denied due to finances at that point. So that's why I say, if you want the application to be considered as an adult under adult SSI eligibility, apply the month after they turn 18.
Great. And there's some questions in the arena now of SSDI. For people that just generally retire, that's not necessarily going to qualify a person for a person's child for SSDI, right? Or somebody said if they had somebody, a husband recently retired, paid into, let's say, a railroad system for a number of years, does that qualify the son for SSDI?
Well, I was going to answer one way until we said railroad.
Wow, you are good.
Railroad, there is something different about railroad workers. And I'm going to refer to the Social Security website about that. There is something different about that. But yeah, but in general, if a parent has paid into the system and has paid that has had that FICA withdrawal and they retire, a child under the age of 18 can receive SSDI. They do not need to be disabled in order to get that. It's a child under 18. But that the rules change once that child turns 18. And that's when you get into the disabled adult childhood disability benefit thing. Yeah.
Sticking with the SSDI arena, both parents, public school teachers, so haven't paid much into SSI. Will this negatively impact efforts for our daughter to get SSDI?
That is a good question. I'm taking a deep breath because there was something in our own family where they were public school teachers and somehow it affected disability SSDI benefits. So that goes beyond the scope of my knowledge. So I would say, though, that if for whatever reason there haven't been lots of payments into, I mean, let me try this another way. Qualifying for SSDI requires that people have earned credits. I talked about earning 6 credits before they turn 24, but there's a big chart on the Social Security website that you can look up for how many credits you need to get at what age in order to qualify for SSDI. And for your typical working person in the United States, they need to earn 40 credits in order to get their full retirement benefits. So if for whatever reason you haven't reached that, then yes, that will affect SSDI payments for your children. But I don't know specifics about that, so I would check the Social Security website for that. Probably check with the teachers union or whatever on what those policies are, because I know in our family's situation, we were surprised by disability benefits not coming that we thought were going to.
So, thank you, Suzanne. Another
Mhm.
couple of questions just about, can a person receive both SSI and SSDI?
Yes, you can. And the way that that happens is a pretty specific situation. So the amount, it would happen, again, if you were eligible for both, that SSDI payment. Let me see how to describe this most efficiently. Let me say this. The SSI payment, and I didn't really discuss this in there. The full SSI payment for 2024 is $941 a month. That's the full amount. There's a 2/3 reduction, which we don't, I mean, we could get into it, but I just, again, we were sort of looking at 10,000 foot level on this for this presentation. If the SSDI amount that they are eligible for is less than $941, then they would get the SSDI payment, and then SSI would fill in up to $941. So let me put that another way. Let's say that your child is, the payment that they get off of your work record or your spouse's work record is $500. They would get each month, hypothetically, the $500 of SSDI and then 441 of SSI, so that we get that full amount. That's how you can get both SSI and SSDI. If your child is eligible for more than $941 off of your account, they just won't get SSI. They'll just get the SSDI.
Great. We also have a number of questions in the arena of how often or how do you re-qualify for SSDI? How often do you have to, and how do you do that?
That would be over the age of 18. There would be probably a continuing medical review that would happen. And I think it was on the SSI where it said at least every 3 years. I imagine it would be the same for that. They want to make sure that people are still eligible for the program. Mm-hmm.
Great. Another good question, just asking, is there anything about applying to these federal programs that is state specific, or does the state of residence not matter?
For these programs, no. You heard me kind of go up at the end there. For these programs, no. There are other states in the country that add on to the amount. If you qualify for SSI, then they sort of bolster that amount as well and give people with disabilities a little extra money. Illinois is not one of those states. But the eligibility requirements, these are federal regulations. In our state, the office where they determine it is in Springfield, but these are federal rules. And so it's across the board the same. There just might be other states where you might get some more money if you're eligible for it, but Illinois is not one of those states.
Great. Here's a question about what happens if you qualify for SSDI, subsequently you no longer qualify because you make too much money, and then you lose your job. How do you get yourself back on the SSDI benefit list?
Then you'd be calling the Social Security office or contacting them to get back for a redetermination, a meeting. This also brings to mind, we're talking about working and losing a job or having a job. Another thing I want to tell you about it, actually, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do this, but I am on here. If you have any questions about working and keeping your benefits and programs that are in place through the Social Security Administration, like the Ticket to Work program, or Medicaid has health benefits for workers with disabilities, these programs, I want you to contact WIPA, which stands for Work Incentives, Planning and Assistance Program. If you've got questions about working and keeping benefits, you have to have a job or have been offered a job in order to qualify to get this benefits counseling, but this is benefits counseling. Work Incentives, Planning and Assistance, or WIPA, and I put the link in the chat there.
So we have several questions that are focusing on Medicare and the interplay between Medicare, SSI, and SSDI. One is a question around, does my son qualify for Medicare because his father is on Medicare, but is not receiving a Social Security retirement benefit? Another is around, if a person's on SSI and the parent will be retiring, is that when to apply for Medicare? So could you maybe just tell us a little bit about Medicare and SSI and SSDI?
Yes, I will try to address all of those. Again, the way, unless a person with disabilities or your child who is considered disabled is working and gets those credits on their own, then the way that a child receives SSDI payments off of their parents' earnings is if the parent is already or does retire, become disabled, or passes away. So there was a question about then, do you apply for Medicare? If we go through that hoop and you've got an adult child that is receiving a childhood disability benefit or is a disabled adult child, that DAC term, once they are receiving SSDI, it's 24 months until they can receive Medicare, and that happens automatically. There is no applying for Medicare. It will be presented to you. It's one of the few things that just sort of happens. It's kind of magic. That's how that happens. So in that case, there is no applying for Medicare in that case. Can you repeat that first question for me, though?
Maybe.
Let
me see if I can get back to
it. Yeah. Sorry, I know you're going through a lot of questions there.
We have a very active group here asking questions. Let's see. There was a question about a husband being on Medicare but does not collect Social Security retirement. Okay. Does the son qualify for Medicare because his father is on Medicare? No. Or does the husband need to collect Social Security retirement income and have Medicare at the same time?
Good question. It is not whether the parent is on Medicare. The eligibility is through receiving SSDI, whether the parent is retired, disabled, or deceased. Great.
Here's an interesting question. Does the rep payee account for SSI come with a debit card?
Depends on the account. Depends on the bank.
And we go back to Joyce's recommendation that you get a bank that knows what they're doing with your SSI money.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I guess I would say that if you walk into a bank and they don't know what that letter is, because again, you're going to need that letter from Social Security that says this person receiving it. And I mean, this is how it happened when we did this 4 years ago with our son. There needed to be a letter. and then you walked into your bank and they knew what it was at that. But I would say if you walk into a bank and they don't know what it is, might be good to walk out, find another bank, perhaps.
And just kind of another flavor of this, do you qualify for SSDI from father or mother's income?
It can be either. I will also say that we've taken some questions. It can be either. Once one of them retires, though, I'm not sure about changing it. I know we've gotten some questions. I've gotten some questions in the office about, well, this one retired first, but if the other one retires, they're going to be making more. Can we take the benefit, and can we shift this around? And I want to, there was something about that. And again, I'm not remembering all the specifics about it. To answer your question, it can be either parent. Either parent can do it. And you might want to, again, check with if you can find a benefits counselor, or perhaps a tax advisor could help with this question about when to take that SSDI payment if a parent qualifies for it.
Suzanne, there's a couple of questions just about using that SSI money for rent. One question is, can you talk about fair share versus rent for SSI? And another question in the same arena is, how do you calculate fair share if you don't have a house? Can a mortgage be included for SSI?
So now we're getting into that 2/3 reduction that I was talking about. In 2024, and for those who might not know what we're talking about with charging rent and all this, in 2024, the full amount of SSI is $941 that you can get a month. However, if your child is still living with you, then the default setting is that the Social Security Administration will reduce that amount. So they'll call it a 1/3 reduction. I might have said 2/3. It's a 1/3 reduction. So I haven't done that math. Somebody can use a calculator and figure that out. But it's a 1/3 reduction if your child is living with you under the same roof. There are some ways to get the full amount. There are two ways to do it. One is by charging fair share, and the other one is by charging rent. There is information about how to do this online. I'm going to do my best to describe this as accurately and as simply as possible. Fair share, if you're charging fair share, and I will also say that it's easiest to do these things when you are applying. Do it right when you're applying. If you apply and you get the 1/3 reduction and then you have to prove that you're charging fair share or rent, it's a little harder. So try to do this right away if you can. And I will also say here that there are plenty of parents out there that feel funny about charging their child rent and all that. And I get that. And I will also say that this life gets expensive. And maybe you might not want to leave money on the table to help you pay for some of these programs, or help your child pay for some of these programs as they are aging out and becoming an adult. I'll just say that. I'll leave it there. Fair share. Charging fair share is a calculation. You're going to be adding up all of the expenses for the household and divide it by the number of people in the house. So let's say, I'm just going to throw some numbers out there. Let's say that all of the expenses that you have to pay for housing and the mortgage and the taxes and the utilities and all that, let's just say that it's $4,000. And you've got a family of 4. Each person's share is $1,000 then. If you divide all of that by 4. Okay? In that case, their fair share, their child's fair share is $1,000. If they get the full amount that you can qualify for is $941. Let's say they throw all that $941, the Social Security Administration is going to look at that and say they aren't paying their fair share, because the fair share of that is $1,000. So then they would reduce the amount by a third that they get, because your child would be considered to be receiving what's called in-kind expenses. So, or in-kind assistance. Let's change those numbers though. Let's say that all of your expenses, $2,000, and you've got a family of 4. Then the fair share is $500. And the full amount is $941. So then they would say, okay, you can charge fair share and get the full $941. So I hope that kind of cleared up the fair share thing. Let's go back to that first example that I gave, where the fair share, the child's share, is over the amount of the full amount of Social Security, which is $941. The other way that you can do this is by charging your child rent. And there, again, it's sort of it's a process that you have to go through, and you would need to find a rental agreement. You do need to submit a rental agreement to the Social Security Administration. You need to charge them what the going rate would be for renting a room in your area. So there's some research that needs to be done. This all needs to be submitted to your local office, and they will determine whether they accept it. Now, what I will also say, this is anecdotally, I will say that the Evanston office doesn't appear to be particularly friendly to charging rent. So be ready with your documentation if you're ready to do that. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer on this, but I have heard that that the Evanston office pushes back a little bit on charging rent. I will say there is, trying to think if there are other resources for charging rent that I know of. You know, this is not an endorsement of a particular attorney, but I want to say that Robert Farley, who is in more western suburbs, let me see. He has something about fair share. Anyway, his name is Robert Farley. And again, I am not endorsing him personally as an attorney, but he does have some information about fair share and charging rent on his website. So that might be a good place to look for that.
So Suzanne, there are more questions, but we are running up against our time.
Mm-hmm.
And we would like to have you just reiterate, if you would, if people have questions, we will be able to share your contact information and those of your colleagues at the ARC in the I know it's in the presentation. We'll also share it in the email, so people can reach out with specific questions to you also. If we didn't get to your, I'm sorry for the folks, if we didn't get to your question. We just want to make sure that we respect everyone's time tonight. And we'd like to, at this point, turn it over to our Executive Director, Dick Malone, to wrap it up.
Thank you very much. Well, that was excellent, Suzanne. Thank you so much. That was very, very informative. I think indicator as to how interesting it was to people is that I was kind of watching how many people were remaining on. We had over 80 people on the entire time. So that is good to see, and we're getting more information out there. And we all know how difficult getting good information is, and you did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, for those of you who are eager to delve into the resources available at the ARC of Illinois, please do so. And we will also post in here in the chat box the address of the Center for Independent Futures as well. So you can, if you want to look at our resources, you're able to do that. And just a reminder, this presentation is the first of 3 educational Zoom webinars that we're hosting this spring. Next month on March 12th at 6 p.m., you can learn about integrating taxes into your overall plan with Mary Ann Ellert of Protected Tomorrows, who's a terrific resource.
Yes, she is. And a timely topic covering
very much
taxes in
so.
March. That'll be good. That'll be good. Yeah.
And then in April, you can mark your calendar for April 17th at 7 p.m. for an informational hour with the founder and president of Oak Wealth Advisors. His name is Mike Walter, and he'll be sharing information on how to optimize the use of your ABLE accounts and special needs trusts. So we'll continue to have these events going forward, and I want to thank you again, Suzanne, for being here tonight, doing such a great job. And we thank everybody for joining us. We hope you have a good rest of your evening. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.